Hi, everybody. This is Nate. Welcome to the channel. And I wanted to welcome Andre again to join me to discuss a little bit the state of the world and the United States in this late July. So welcome, Andre.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And hello, everyone.
And so we wanted to start a little bit maybe by looking at kind of the current energies before we get into some of those details. It looks like July, just not to really spend too much time on July, but it was supposed to be a busy, a bit crazy month, and it has been. A lot has happened. And so, from maybe an astrological point of view, do you see also as we get to August the same kind of energy, as intense, or maybe surprises?
Yeah, I'm guessing less so. The reason is that July is a month with multiple planetary stations, and you can often get the intensity of a situation just from that. For example, when I do a chart of some big event that happened, and I look at the month and I look for where is the planet going retrograde or direct, those are stations. And you often see that clustered, like for example, a person may die on the 15th and you see the station on the 14th. That's the reason. Or remember that back in, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, that submersible that went down in the ocean, it was right on the Saturn station in Pisces, which is the sign of the ocean. I mean, very graphic, right? So in July, we had Saturn, Neptune, Eris, and now Chiron stations at the end of the month. So it's a lot of station energy, and stations really amplify the energy. And I didn't know in June, I was saying, hey, look, watch out for July because there are these two stations. And the previous year, if you remember, the stations, which also happened around the same time, was the Biden debate, the thing
Oh,
with Kamala, the whole
yeah.
thing. So things really intensified. So this month, I think odds are that it's going to be more intense than August. We should get a bit of a breather for a bit.
Yeah, but is there, even though there's fewer stations, are there maybe some trends in August that maybe are being worth looking at?
Yes.
Other movements or yep.
Yeah, that what one that comes to mind immediately is when you look through the president's eyes, and these days, it's like he's at the top level. Whatever's happening to him seems to rebound to everything else. And in his, there's a bit of a lull there in the first 2 weeks. Then it picks up again because it's Mars, the Mars cycle. Right now, he's very upset. Where the Mars is, nothing is working. He's probably screaming and yelling at people. It's an angry, combative, hot energy, and it's really challenging him. And then it cools off for a little bit, and then it comes up again. So the second half of the month, that's how I see it going from the middle. It'll probably pick up again. And you can already anticipate, if you think about US politics, they sent the House of Representatives home because now some of them are want to do their own thing, and they want to do something different than Trump. So Mike Johnson said, okay, that's it, closing the door, everybody goes home.
Yes.
But they're going to go home, they're going to talk to their voters. Their voters are going to say, no, 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 we want to see the Epstein. Oh, yes, this is, no, no, you've said this for years. So then they're going to come back. There's going to be a lot of expectation, and how will they vote? And my feeling is it's going to create some heat as we go into September. Also, the other thing is big planetary change in September because Saturn comes back. Saturn has been in Aries since the beginning of June. It comes back into Pisces starting in September, and then it'll go back, stays in Pisces till February before it returns into Aries. So that's another point, in the cycle. Yeah,
I
as I
mean,
see it.
yeah, yeah. From my perspective, I think, I mean, the way that I feel and see is I can definitely see the Epstein problems continuing. Like I feel like it's going to be through August, through September, but also I feel like we're already seeing the beginning of real problems in the economy, and I mentioned that in previous prediction videos I think this is going to really, really intensify. We're all aware of, prices rising in the US, uh, but also like there are real sectors of the economy that are struggling. I was just reading an article just today, like in Vegas, the business is down 15-20%. You have parts of Florida that are really struggling with tourism. You have the housing market that's starting to get really impacted. You have e-commerce sales, online sales that are really coming down in numerous ways. It's starting to really, really shape into an economic problem. And I see this, and that's an old prediction that I keep on bringing up. This summer, I really feel like there's going to be a real issue with the economy and the stock market, and it wouldn't surprise me that this happens in August. This could happen in September as well, but I think we're getting closer and closer to that. And so you're talking about representatives going back to their constituents. Yes, there's Epstein, but I think, the economy is also another factor. And three, and then I let you comment. It's interesting that there's also, for the vast majority of the Americans, that the what's going on with ICE, what's going on with deportations and the immigration are going, for some people saying, I mean, obviously, I believe and we believe it's going way too far, but for some people to start to say that it's going too far, that we're not saying that before. So the center is, of course, the center, and even like MAGA and parts of MAGA or parts of Republicans that are not MAGA matter also in where they stand with the whole thing. And that also hurt them on all three levels: the economy, the ICE and immigration, as well as Epstein. It starts to really hurt.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's very ironic that the Epstein thing would be in a way the top drag, and it's pulling on all the other
Yes.
topics. Because if you think about the economy, for example, a large part of his base, they need the economy to be going well just to go to the store and buy food at a good price. And no matter what you say, and this is the president whose tombstone is going to say he said, he said, he said. He just talks all the time. And that only goes so far. When someone will look at the price of milk, the price of whatever, and say, well, this is going up. I see it going up. You said you were going to do something about this. And now I'm in a struggle. And I was already mad at you about the Epstein thing. Now I'm twice as mad. You're hiding things and you're not helping me. So certainly, and what you said about immigration is also true, although this tends to be a political reality as well, because people sometimes don't realize that politicians will say, I'm going to do this. And then you say, yeah, yeah, great, great. But then when they go do it, it doesn't quite feel as good as when he was saying he was going to do it. So usually people criticize the action more. But in this case, people that now they say, well, you said, yes, immigration, but you said you were going to send away the criminals. Why are you sending away my friend who is he's here illegally, but he's picking the fruit, or he's working at the mechanic shop, and you want to send him home? That's not right. So you're chipping away. And so then, even if the big bloc stays loyal, you just need 5%, 10%. And the economy there, my sense is that the Pisces return, Saturn going back, 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 especially toward the end of the year at stations. And that is where stations, right where back in the spring, he did Liberation Day tariffs. So tariffs, you put these tariffs, and what happens is it takes a while, because sometimes the buyers stock up and
It did.
slowly go. Then they realize, okay, well, now I'm selling this thing for $5, but I'm paying $1 more. I'm going to raise it to $6 because I have to get my money back. And then people realize that the prices have risen. And so I agree with you. And also too, the other thing that's interesting is in his chart, that Saturn placement is the placement of the market, which is why back then, the market stopped him. He said Liberation Day, and the market. So then he said, okay, no, let's wait 30 days. Let's wait 60 days. So that to me is when it comes back. It comes home to roost, and then in a way it can become a counterpoint to push the Epstein problem into the background. But
No.
that's not a good, for that to go away. See, they created this problem themselves. They created something for which there is no answer. I've said to a few people, if you go to sleep with a conspirator, you wake up with a conspirator. You have to realize that, right? These conspiracy theories, theorists, people, once they believe something, you're not gonna, if you say to them, explain logically, here's why, they'll say, oh, this is worse than I thought. You're part of the conspiracy.
I know. And like I think, I don't know what the exact percent, but there's a maybe 15-20% of MAGA that are QAnon people. So those people, they're really convinced of all the conspiracy theories, the child trafficking, all of this. And so they really, because there are different groups within MAGA, and they have different views on what Trump's gonna do. And so this group really wanted to dismantle what they think is the whole trafficking thing. And so they're not getting those, like, you're talking about 5-10%. This group is 15-20% alone.
No, it's what, to me, this is the literal definition. When people say, well, what is karma? This is karma. You play with fire, at some point you might get burned. It's because that's what you're doing. You're in the element of fire. That's its nature. So this was exploited. It was manipulated. He put people in charge of the FBI who were saying repeatedly, there's this thing, the Epstein files. And then they go into, when they become part of the system, there's nothing here. Well, of course, the MAGA people will say, well, obviously you're part of the system. You're now hiding.
Yeah, and it's like a drain the swamp, where how you can do that if you're part of it. And so I I mean, I feel like he is getting really, really cornered. Um, this is also something that is worth to mention, is that I think this is the very first time that MAGA realize that they've been lied to.
Mhm.
So that matters.
That's remarkable. When you think about that, it's remarkable. I'm seeing people that in podcasts who were previously strongly supportive MAGA people who actually seem quite intelligent, and to me, I listen to someone explain, think, this guy's got a pretty good mind. And then they'll say, oh, well, now he's saying MLK files. Come on. Who asked for the MLK files? Now he's saying Obama. And then the guy says, well, once you start talking about Obama, I know you're lying. And I'm thinking, like, seriously, this is how long it's taken you to figure this out? Please. Okay, you've watched this guy for years. This guy lies at the rate that he breathes, okay? He's just lying like constantly. This was not a made up mainstream media thing that he's a liar. He is a liar. He lies, right? So now you needed this because your favorite conspiracy theory has been upset. And these are the smart ones, okay? Because then we have the ones that are not so smart, that you think you could tell that person that pigs fly, and he would think, oh, really? Where did you see it? He'll get into the discussion as though it's potentially real. So it is absolutely remarkable. But, in a way, it's also justice, because let's face it, this is a serious thing. They were exploiting underage girls,
Of course.
children. So if that isn't a crime, what is a crime? And now, to make matters worse, this is the next argument. I don't know what you think about this. So now, one of his attorneys, because that's another thing that he does that is incredibly corrupt, instead of having U.S. attorneys, they become his attorneys.
Yes.
So he sends his attorney to talk to Ghislaine Maxwell, who was convicted. So, and now you're seeing some of the media, like OAN and Newsmax, and they're saying, well, maybe she's a victim. Maybe we shouldn't be so hard on her. Please, I have a feeling
she's been convicted. So there's no question here. Yes.
Well, I'm assuming, if you think about it, wouldn't it make sense to you that the supporters probably believe that Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell are really bad. It's just that there are other people that are really bad
That's
and they're
what they
hiding those
want.
people.
They want the
That's what they want.
Democrats, of course.
Right. But if now she says, well, no, there were no people and Trump was like a saint. Trump was actually, he was telling us, oh, don't get involved. Trump is the most ethical person. He's never done anything like this. Otherwise, what is she going to say? How does she get herself off and him? Like you said, they're in a corner. They've created a corner of their own making, and it's very hard to get out of it, right?
But do you feel so? I think we should spend a minute on trying to see, and I would love to pull some cards there in terms of kind of what is he going to do to get out of this corner? What is going to be his strategy? Is he going to try to do a deal with Maxwell? Is he going to try to deflect? Is he just going to hope that everything, or is he just going to do something crazy like deflect and then focus on the Middle East, Iran, just to change the narrative?
Well, he does that already. He's so shameless, so brazen. He was in a Republic meeting with Republicans. He told them, no, just keep repeating the Obama thing. Keep saying whenever they ask you about Epstein, just mention Obama.
Obama, but
The problem is that the base is onto him now. They're onto him because you've upset their key truth. You've hit them in a place where they're not happy with the answer. So now when they hear you bring up other things, and by the way, the Obama thing, if I'm in the base, I'd say, well, okay, then do something about Obama. Arrest him already. Charge him. Okay, first problem is that the Supreme Court said he's immune. That's the first problem.
no,
Second problem is, what do you
there's
got?
nothing. There's
There's
nothing.
nothing there. So he's hoping that, hey, I'll just throw this out there and then these people will forget about it.
It just doesn't hold enough meat to be taken seriously.
No, and this is the point in astrology, when you have too many planets harassing you at the same time, which is what he has. He's in the midst of multiple planetary hits. It is very hard, very hard. You can try, life won't let you, it just won't. And one of the worst for him is the Jupiter, because he is very confident and he's literally the most overconfident person, one of the most overconfident people I've ever seen. And he's constantly doing that now because the Jupiter is in the wrong place. Ever since it left Gemini in June, he's been complicating his life. The first thing that he did with the Jupiter that was a huge mistake is he said, my supporters are stupid. Look what they're doing. They're helping the Democrats. These are stupid people. I don't want them anymore. I hope that they don't follow me. That did not sit well with his people. And so, yeah, it's not a good setup.
No. Should we? I feel like I want to maybe pull just a couple of cards on this topic to. I would like to ask what's going to be his strategy? What's going to be
Sure.
Is how does he plan? Or if he can, planning is a big exercise for him because he doesn't plan. But how does he? What is his idea to get out of this mess? Like what does he think that he can do to get out of this mess on the Epstein aspect?
It's funny that I don't want to interrupt your intuition, but this thing that he probably thought, if I fire Powell, that'll totally switch the topic. The problem with that is that could also get the market to tank. You're playing with fire, and you're trying to apply solutions that could create even further problems and get you into an even bigger jam. So anyway, go ahead.
No, but just on that topic, something that I don't understand is that, I mean, I don't have a degree in economics, but I know with the tariffs, which now, by the way, are not 30 something percent, but 10, 15%, which is still a lot, which means that prices can go 10, 15% up. With Japan, it's 15%. With the EU, it's planned to be 15%. So that brings an economy where prices are going up. So if prices are going up, you're not going to bring the interest rates down. And he wants him to bring the interest. So something just either he does not understand economy or he just doesn't have any clue of what he's talking about. or
Both. You
just
just have
political and just because that's the opposite of what is likely going to happen. Remembered how the interest rates were going up last year because of inflation to follow the price
of
rising.
course.
And the
Yeah.
dollar is already going down. I mean, I see the dollar, I mean, since the beginning of the year, the dollar to a number of currencies has dropped like 15%.
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
So
That's what
it
I'm
cannot
saying.
even, I mean, there's a real risk of the value of the dollar going down and down. So why would you lower the interest? Something just doesn't make any sense. So, anyways, I really wanted to say that. So let's get on the Epstein stuff. Um, what
What does he do?
what is Trump going to do about Epstein? So the first card, the Three of Swords. So that's like a big disappointment. It's almost like, yes, you got himself in a corner, and there's really not much. Like you screwed up. Like it's a real screw up. To me, for someone who never accepts like there's a problem, it's almost gonna have to get him to accept, to solve an issue, you have to admit there is an issue. And so that with me is like step one. The high priestess in this case, to me, talks about a woman. So we could, the key could be Maxwell, but generally speaking, the energy from the card is about secrets. It's about behind the scenes stuff, organizing things behind the scenes. It has a lot of the energy of the moon, which you see very big here in the card. And so I would say that he's going to try to do something behind the scene to erase, to remove, to kind of, but that doesn't really solve the issue of the base. Like they expect an answer and it's more secrets. So there's like a conflict here. Um, and then the Six of Swords, it's like going to a different place, trying to move. So to me, that would be equivalent to moving the narrative to another problem. So what I feel, it's like I don't really see him finding a solution. I feel like this issue is going to keep coming over and over again. He might do something with Maxwell. He might try to cut some deals or shift something in the background. But ultimately, the strategy that's going to be the one that he's going to use in the end will be to shift the attention to something else, because that's the easiest thing to do.
But it may be the only thing he can do too. What else can he do?
That's the only thing he can do.
If the topic is in the news, and this is his genius, his primary life skill is he's very, very good at reading the news cycle and
Yes.
understanding that if I throw this out there, they'll chase it, and then we'll talk about that.
Yes.
The problem is that this particular topic is very hard to shake because it's so incendiary. It's so raw, in people's minds, and also so entrenched in their beliefs that if you really believe, because it's so obvious to you that by the way, there have to be problems in there. There's no question. You convict a woman, put her in jail for 20 years. The other guy dies in jail. Now there's that rumor that probably isn't a rumor that 2 minutes of the video are missing. Why are 2 minutes
Yes.
of the video missing? That's pretty weird. Like if everything is so clear and no one has said, have they come out? Have you heard anyone from the Justice Department say, no, the video is absolutely correct.
Yeah, no.
We can prove that the 2 minutes are missing. They haven't said that. That leaves it as an open question. So yeah, it's very difficult to make this go away when there are so many things that are questionable and suspicious. Yes. Yeah.
So I think, my view is that his goal during August, since we're focusing on August, will be to constantly try to change the narrative. And I think he's gonna throw something if it sticks, then that's good. If it doesn't stick, you throw something else and throw something else until something changes the narrative, because that's the only strategy. The Six of Swords is that you're moving to away from troubled waters.
Yeah, you're Six of Swords is like a journey, right? Where
Yes,
you're
so
going in a
you're
certain
moving
direction.
away from the problem.
That's too bad that your method is three cards. You know, the fourth card, when you pull it out, you'll have a brick wall.
Well, talking a brick wall, what is his health is the brick wall.
Well, that okay, but that's the, no pun intended, the trump card, because well, you know, his age combined with the cycles he's on, this is really risky. You know, and by the way, now you ask yourself this: what are the odds that you would have seen in prior years, even if it was true, that thing about he has chronic venous insufficiency and they show you his feet and everything? Trump hates, he just hates the anything that where he doesn't look great is a threat. But I think in his mind he thought, well, at least they'll pay attention to that. Maybe they'll have pity on me. Maybe they will be feel sorry for me. You know, so
That was
that out.
very telling when they released that. To me, I didn't care so much of what they say. It was the fact that they talk about a health problem. That was like the massive news. It doesn't care. Even if they said he had headaches, that was already saying something. And that says, and we know it's very common. They talk about this, but in reality, it's this, right? The problem is tenfold.
Yeah,
So there's something really, really serious. And actually, I'm I'm I I've discussed many times on my prediction videos that I see health problems, but I did not expect, I'll have to admit that I didn't expect the White House to release a statement on his health that soon.
which was probably strategic because it was probably to, as he always does, as per your, you know, when you the reading you just did, in a way, gives you the immediate response, but it has been his response almost his whole life. Shifty topics, shifty dialogue.
Yes.
That was an attempt to shift it. And then this is where people sometimes say to me, well, why can't you just say he will, this is when he dies, or this is when something terrible happens? Because the only thing you know from the astrology is the zone. So I know that next year, the zone where Saturn is extremely dangerous to his health. Yes, that's a possibility, which means, for example, maybe he can't continue. Maybe he has to be, he's maybe disabled in some way, because that's there in his chart. But if not, then the political reality is also very problematic at the same time, because planets can do two things at once. You know, this energy where it is, for example, complicates legal issues, immigration issues, judges and judgments, the media. All of those are in the same house in astrology. But does it surprise you they're in the same house? No, because that's what this guy is dealing with. So yeah,
I
that's the
would
answer
make
to
a
that.
side comment that when I was reflecting on the Six of Swords, this is also a transportation and movement. And I feel like there's also danger around him in a vehicle, in a car, in a plane. I just felt that. So I'm just gonna put it out there because while you were talking, I was getting that information, like danger
Mm,
around transportation.
yeah.
So
Would you would you believe I'm making it up if I told you that the so the place where the Saturn goes in this chart is the ninth, 3-9 is the transportation
oh,
axis. It's in astrology. That was the Princess Diana story. You see that it's so graphic. This is why astrologers, they don't stop doing what they're doing, because they run into things like that and they think, wow,
yeah.
that's so graphic that it tells me there are these patterns, you know, that we can, yes. So it makes sense.
I mean, clearly with him, I think it's the heart, the blood flow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, the card that I always get is temperance. Temperance is the flow, is the blood flow, the circulation. So that could lead to a heart disease, stroke. And actually, when you combine that with transportation. For example, you can get a DVT, a blood clot in his leg while he's flying somewhere. And you've
Oh
noticed
yeah.
that he doesn't do a lot of long flights, so it's interesting.
Yeah, no, all of that is true. All of that is
Yeah.
true. There's no question. Plus the other thing, unless he's changed, and I don't think he's changed a little bit, but I think part of it is that I think he started taking a drug. That might be another issue that's going on, because there was a point there where they said he lost some weight,
Yes.
and then there was this rumor that he might be taking Ozempic or
Yes.
something like that. Uh, but usually to really improve your health, throwing a drug in is not enough. You have to
Of course.
taper down. I heard this really funny story about someone who was doing a report on him, and they were going to do the same diet that he has to find out how it felt. But then when they checked with doctors, they changed their mind because they the first question the doctor asked was, "Is there a heart disease in your family?" Because of the way he shovels it in there. And like in a way, I it's remarkable to me that the way he lives, he hasn't had more health problems already. But then
Yes.
there's that thing, right? That when it becomes once you cross 75 to 80, now you're in the actuarial insurance. Insurance companies, they point there. Why? Because that's the life expectancy. So it's harder and harder. You have to be more disciplined. And
Yep.
this is what he doesn't have. So yeah, bottom line, I agree with you 100%.
Andrew, do you want to switch topic a little bit, move to maybe international, or we continue a little bit here?
No,
Yep.
we can move to the next. Fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I think we kind of covered quite a bit here for Trump, Epstein, MAGA. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Well, I think I think maybe just touching on the people in his cabinet that are involved in this mess. It's not just him.
Mhm.
So Exet was really on the hot seat, not not because of the using non messaging system that was non-secure, but because of the parade. I mean, yeah.
Mhm.
But Bondi and Patel are, I think, in the hot seat at this time. Like they're, and I feel like one of the things that I saw Trump doing is getting closer and closer to blame Bondi. I feel like this could be also one of his um, technique to just um, shift the blame, basically.
Yeah. Well, Bondi. I think I talked about this recently. Bondi, she has to get out. She needs to get out of the summer. She has to survive. If she survives one more month, she is probably going to be okay. But she's still in danger in August. So that's and in her chart, it's a chart without a birth time, just a day. But there's this planet that doesn't matter what the time of birth is; it's the same region, and it exploded right around the station in July, which makes perfect sense why she's suffering. But Saturn will reduce the pressure in September.
I would just pull some cards, just like what do you see for Bondi in in August. I got the Emperor, and the Emperor is Trump. So to me, like her destiny and Trump's destiny are like kind of connected at this point. But the Seven of Swords, this is like the sneaky, sneaky cards. Like I feel like there will be, there will be more coming through for Bondi in August, where it's like, this card is like when you caught the hand in a cookie jar, like literally. And so I feel like I get a sense of inexperience. And so, like she caught herself into problems that it's like Trump is cornered, but I feel like she's in the four corners at the same time. Like she cornered here, she's cornered there, she's cornered. And I see her like being called in front of the Judiciary Committee and whatnot. And I don't know how she's gonna get out of this mess because she's not equipped. She's not equipped. And I'm putting more cards, the devil. So this is a reflection of her, but it's also a reflection of a situation. You know, the devil, we were talking about it before the show. It's those ties. And so how you get out of a mess with the devil, you're literally in bed with the devil, so to speak. And so this is gonna be quite a difficult month, but nothing says that she's leaving though. I don't get the sense like she's leaving, but it's gonna be a hard month.
Yeah, well, see, this is the again the problem with looking at from my vantage point cycles where you see pressure and sometimes extreme pressure. But look at her situation. One form of pressure is you get fired. Of course, that would be you lose your job. The other form is, as you said, you're dragged before the committee. Another way I can see, because this lady has the 2026 problem, as do many of the people in his cabinet. You see that all this Saturn in 2026. Well, right away you think, if the House of Representatives becomes Democratic, you guys have a big problem
Yeah,
because now
true.
you're going to be in front of you're going to be asked all kinds of questions and you won't be able to duck nearly the same way. So
Yeah,
she has the problem. Yeah, I mean,
you can
there's
be
no
put in.
rest without. Yeah, and it continues into around the bend through. I think for her, my best guess would be it might get easier around the end of the year and then picks up energy again in 2026. But it's also, I mean, there is some possibility given the pressure now and given the fact that that would be a great way for Trump to distract if he makes her responsible. But then if he does that, who does he put there? See, this is the problem. He's created this loop where he can't get out of the corner, you know?
No, the four corners. Um,
Yeah.
I could see her in trouble for lying under oath fairly easily. That I think could happen. Just a side comment about this cabinet. The one that I see gaining power right now is Rubio.
Rubio.
Yep. I feel like Trump relies on him, trusts him more and more. He's becoming someone that I feel like he's gaining influence on Trump. I almost feel like Trump is realizing the people, from all the people with Patel, Exet, Bondi, they're really like amateurs. And I feel like whether we like it or not, Rubio is obviously more experienced. And I feel like Trump sees that. Because, I mean, you got to think Trump trusts no one, but he's got to have to work with people. And so who is he going to talk to in the end? It's not Gabbard. She's already like after the Iran thing, she was already trashed out. Bondi is probably in bad terms with the whole Epstein thing. Patel doesn't seem to be in good. So who else does he have? Except is a joke. Who else does he have?
Yeah, Rubio. That's another chart that I've got just the birthday, and the first problem is that that gives you a moon range between certain degrees to other degrees. So there could be a strong variance there. The one that is you see here is the point where there will be a Uranus station next year. It's I think in the spring. That could be a threat to him. But definitely his chart is, yes, it's less besieged.
Yeah,
It doesn't have, yeah, that's totally true. It's true. Yeah, not even, not, it's the reason why this is what you see in the astrology really clearly. You can see the Bondi thing immediately. You show that to an astrologer. Yeah, look, see the Mars, that's what's being hit. No such thing in Rubio's, there's some activity later, maybe, that could show up, but no.
yeah.
Mhm.
All right. I think we're good to move to international just to finish up this show. I think we already spent our last show a lot on Iran and the Middle East. And so what is kind of your take of The Middle East, like the your summary view on the Middle East right now.
Well, I filter that through Netanyahu's chart, and although this is not the Middle East, it ties the Ukraine war as well, is Putin as well. Because what is happening to these two guys? Well, the reason it's similar is they're the same sign. And so both of them right now are channeling the Jupiter energy in an excessive way. You saw how Putin, he increased the bombing.
Yeah.
He's not listening to Trump and all that. And Netanyahu lured Trump into bombing Iran,
Iran.
and he then bombed somebody else. I mean, he's just going forward and expanding,
Bro,
expanding. That's classic Jupiter expansion archetype going too far. The problem is Jupiter has a 12-year cycle, spends a year in a sign, and what it'll often do is it'll make you pay for the excesses either later in the 1 year cycle or in the following cycle. Well, the problem is next year, because next year and the year after and the year after that, this takes you into 2028. Now, and by the way, these two guys, they're not just Libra, they have multiple planets in Libra, which is that's the signal that says, whoa, it's not just one, it's four or five. So then the Saturn goes through just hacking away. Not a good scene. It's just not good. And so then if I had to project, I would say, for example, you were mentioning that you thought, okay, this Iran thing is not over.
no.
Iran is in the background, probably rebuilding, whatever. The problem can resurface next year, or maybe in Israel, they're starting to get tired of, his constant warmongering, and he's got the Gaza problem, he's got the Iran problem, he's got all these other problems. And that's just the way the Saturn energy. Saturn basically reduces and restricts your reality. And also it calls on you to pay for your inappropriate previous expansion. So now there, like, as I said, I brought in the Ukraine war as well, because that's more Putin's problem. I don't know that I would link. Do you link Putin to the Middle East? I think it's less.
Well, there's a connection there, but I think it's just because Putin tries to find allies, and there used to be with Syria and whatnot, but it's weakened and weakened. I mean, it's kind of interesting to see Putin connecting more and more with North Korea. There's more troops from North Korea coming into I think the partnership between North Korea and Putin and Russia is getting stronger. Um, did you maybe a couple of comments? I do feel though that there's going to be some sort of ceasefire with Gaza, um, and maybe August. I feel like but again, it's like with Iran. I don't see that staying. Like I don't feel like this is going to be solid. I'm just curious from your point of view. There was like a 180 for Trump. Just didn't want to support Ukraine. It was buddy buddy with Putin, and then all of a sudden releasing all the uh, arms and all. So what I couldn't figure out what created this 180 shift. Do you have an opinion or an idea?
Well, I think part of what's going on with Trump is his age is showing. I think he's not thinking as clearly as he used to. I think in prior years, he would have found the way to not actually publicly say, what's wrong with this guy? He's lying to me. And, but then you also notice that his final thing was he said, okay, I'm sending the weapons and I'll give you 50 days. So then the Russian minister went on TV and said, well, we've heard this before and we're just adjusting. And, when you say to someone 50 days, I mean, I would have said, I'm sending the weapons and I'm giving you 48 hours. I don't see a change in 48 hours. I'm going to send twice as many weapons. And if I don't see a change by the end of the week, then watch what I do. So he's not really serious. I think His real goal is to hurt Ukraine and help Russia. That's my sense of
I see.
Trump's,
Yeah, yeah.
and there you see too how there is a commonality of, remember I don't know if we talked about this, you and I, but maybe we did, the how in astrology elements work well with each other. If you're an earth sign with another earth sign, if you're an air
Yep,
sign,
yep.
Netanyahu is air, Putin is air, and so is Trump. There is a commonality. Trying, there's a sense of agreement where, for example, you could almost predict the Musk Trump breakdown because different elements,
Yep.
and aside from having big egos, you're just channeling from a different place. So there's agreement. But then when all of you are getting hit at the same time, everybody runs for cover. And, don't be surprised if then
It's
Trump,
gonna,
so
yeah.
you'll say, I mean, this is one of the funny things that I've heard is how, well, Trump doesn't want to talk about Epstein because obviously he's in the files. But then his supporters say, well, no, 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 he's not in the files. We some of his podcast supporters say, no, no, we're not saying that you're in the files. We want to know the other people that are in the files. If Trump knew that he's not in the files, he would release
Release
everybody.
in a second.
As long as he can say, no, no, see, these terrible people, all of them, they need
But
to
I
be
mean,
punished.
who is surprised that he's in the files?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
So, I
there are
mean,
photos, there's letters, I mean,
exactly, exactly, exactly. So anyway, that I went on a tangent there. To answer your question, though,
yes.
it's the I know this frustrates people often. They will say, why can't this be happening already? Because cycles have to unfold, they have to move in a certain direction, and I remember saying this about Putin years ago. I was reading the Ukraine conflict, looking at it as this is going to last a while. These things go for years. And this zone we're in now with Saturn and Neptune in Aries is not helpful to Putin at all. And his problem is that it lasts a long time. And he's tried everything. And what he's accomplished is bringing Russia close to bankruptcy. And he's lost apparently more than 1 million soldiers. And after a while, that's like, remember in the 1980s, Russia had to abandon the Afghanistan war because a lot of the women hit the streets because they were seeing their children, their sons weren't coming back.
I mean, you don't have any prisoners. They're all used. The prisons are empty. They use all this pool of people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and then in the Middle East, as far as Israel, if I have to look at this primarily through Netanyahu's chart. You see it in the Israel chart too, by the way. The Israel chart has been under a lot of pressure in these years, unsurprisingly. And it continues, though it's not as bad as it was before. I'll have to have another look at that one. I better hold off because I haven't seen it in a while. And I just want to make sure that I'm not saying something where
Okay, yeah, maybe for another show we could look at Israel
yeah, take a
in
peek at that. Yeah,
particular.
yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Because there's a conference in September about um the Middle East at the United Nations. There's going to be a lot of activity there. I feel like personally, I've always felt the pressure on Netanyahu will come stronger and stronger and stronger. He has in his own parliament like two votes, two seats in his coalition. This could quickly go a different way. And so I feel like I know, like you were saying, like the Netanyahu's chart is worse next year, but the pressure is going to be felt, I believe, this year already.
Oh no, yeah, there's pressure. What I'm seeing though is just
The wave.
the magnitude of the pressure starting next year. It goes way up, and it doesn't let up. It continues and continues. I'm just looking now
Yep.
at the Israel chart. Now there's still more to go because in the Israel chart alone, we know it was formed. There are arguments about whether you would say 4 p.m., which was the start of the meeting, or 4:30 p.m. when they were announced the State of Israel is formed. If I go with 4 p.m., because pretty obviously that's, the
The
start,
beginning. Yep,
the
yep.
beginning. So, but it wouldn't matter in that either chart will have the moon in approximately the same place. This moon position still has to sort through Pluto for the next 2 years. So, no, Israel, in terms of finding its stability, has a way to go. It has a ways to
I'm
go.
afraid. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Andre. I think we
Oh,
are
no,
going to
pleasure.
be closing our show for today. Thank you, all of you, for watching. Thank you for coming to the channel. We will do another show next month. I think there's been a lot of good feedback on this kind of joint tarot or cards and astrology. So very interesting and very interesting times that we live in. So thank you again. Thank you for watching. And go watch Andre's channel, of course.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone.
Bye bye.